Hi there, and welcome to the Intellectual Adventure Podcast. Today, I'm joined with several of our panel members, and I'd also like to introduce two of our members who were unable to attend the first show. Today, we're all gathered to talk about what makes adaptability important in life. Some of our panel members may not be in attendance for the entire presentation, but they'll be here later on to give their take. At one point, the audio will cut very abruptly because we edited out a small portion out of respect for one of our panel members. Please be patient with us as we begin this very new project and help provide us with feedback to make this project the best it could possibly be. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen.
Sure, Dan, if you want to go first.
All right, thank you, Benjamin. Dan Kearns. A little bit about me. I guess I grew up. I was born in Orange County, and my family moved to Plumas County when I was 5, and so I grew up in this rural environment. Always have been sensitive to things. Always have felt a desire to make the world a better place, right? And through my seeking that outcome, I spent an enlistment in the Marine Corps, and that was really the biggest shifting factor in my life. Was, I went into that believing that we were the good guys and they were the bad guys, and that I was an able-bodied person that was able to go and make the world a better place through the removal of some bad guys from the planet. And long story short, what I observed in Iraq and Afghanistan and in off the coast of Africa, right, was that we are just a corporate conglomerate that is hoarding resources and moving people out of the way. And as a Marine, as a service member, I was just a pawn in that game, and that was utterly heartbreaking for me. And that was the catalyst, I guess, that flipped my paradigm. I don't know that I would have stood there and allowed my paradigm to be flipped upside down if I had the choice, but I didn't have a choice, right? I was in Afghanistan and couldn't go home. So I just had to work through that. And I spent a lot of years in a really dark place dealing with trying to kind of pick up all the pieces and put them back together in a paradigm that worked for me. And what essentially I learned was that every official system out there has basically been harnessed for the purpose of control and for propagating the wealth of the already wealthy. And so, I really wanted to stand up against that. I really wanted to push back against that. Really wanted to do something about that too. And I guess I've gone full circle now to where I'm realizing that I can only do what I can do. And sometimes the best thing in all that is just to set the example. Just to folk, you can tell people how to do something or try to share something with people, and that doesn't always work, but if people see you doing something that's working, then they really gravitate towards that. So for me, what am I up to right now? I'm kind of still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, honestly, as a 42-year-old, because I am trying to be adaptable, and I am trying to take this opportunity to look at my community, my environment, my family, my land, my home, and say, what do I want it to look like? And how can I help, or how can I get out of the way? And so I guess that's all I want to say about me right now. I don't know. I'm always open to questions or interpretation, but despite my long-windedness, I really don't like talking about me all that much.
Hey, no one really does. I mean, some do, I guess. Some do. Extroverts, we don't have to talk about them.
Oh, I do just
but
want to.
Benjamin.
I did want to say real quick, Cameron and Aquatic and all you guys have been working on this so hard. Thank you so much for your hard work and putting all this together and your perseverance and for just including me. I feel really honored to be here and to be included in this group and in this discussion. And so I just want to share my appreciation and thanks for you guys.
Hey, well, we appreciate that, Dan, and I appreciate hearing that. It's seriously my pleasure to do this and work with such great people. So I I have something to be thankful for with this project, and honestly, I'd love to invite Benjamin if you would like to work on your introduction now.
Sure. Hi, my name is Benjamin Heaney. Just turned 24 this last September. I'm originally born down in Orange County in Southern California, but I've lived up in Quincy and Plumas County my entire life. That is where I call home. That is where I feel most connected to my community and also to nature. I've known Cameron for years now. We grew up together. I'm a graduate of Sonoma State University with a BA, a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology, and a minor in music. I just recently this week got hired by a archaeology consulting company in Santa Rosa called Alta, and I'm also participating in a field school down at Foothill College, working on gaining more experience in archaeology. And my dreams for I guess I suppose I can say, like, my dreams for the future are something I've been thinking about recently is at a point hopefully going back up to Plumas County and working in archaeology, working with the Mountain Maidu tribes up there, as well as the community, to kind of broach a better understanding of human history, both historic and prehistoric. I mean that in the terms of before recorded history of our species in that area, because I remember growing up, there was what we had called Maidu Day, which was when a people from the bunch of the Roundhouse Council came and shared with like the elementary and young kids like how to weave a basket, how to grind up acorns to prepare for flour to make for food, and just learning about that culture. And I really want to start that back up because that's how I feel that I started my connection, my interest in nature, and my love for the world that we live in. And I really want to start that back up. And I feel that that's going to be crucial in the next coming years for people's well-being, and then just our concern for the planet.
That's wonderful, Ben. I think I commend you on that. And Dan, yeah, would you like to comment?
So Ben, and to hear of what you're into and what you're doing, I would consider I'm like an amateur or hobbyist researcher in these things. I'm also fascinated by the history, particularly of this place. One thing that I have learned in my life's journey is that this is not the first life I have spent in this particular part of the world. As a child, I've always felt like looking at the mountains, something familiar. It's almost like an ownership that I have of this place, not in the control sense, but that is deeply, deeply connected to my soul and my DNA. And through my spiritual journey, I have gotten glimpses of lives that I've spent here in the past. And I'm really excited because I too believe that that part of a way forward that I see for humanity itself is kind of going back to some of these old practices. Remember, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're remembering better ways of doing these things. There were people who lived on this land, on this planet for tens of thousands of years in perfect harmony with, and that's not to say they didn't get along. or that they always got along, right? There, of course, there was strife and struggle, but these societies that lived in harmony with their environments for thousands of years, and since we came with our I'm doing air quotes again, right, the one true religion, and all of our technology and all of our advancements and all of our better way of doing things, like in about 300 years, we've almost wiped ourselves off the map, and we've almost made this world uninhabitable. So I think taking a page out of the book of the people who were able to live here sustainably for thousands of years is a really important, as there's a lot of information in there that we could, especially if we take our modern technology and modern advances and apply it to being more sustainable, more interconnected, more loving, more to being more aware of ourselves and how we influence the world around us. I think there's an incredible gift there, right? Most of our technological advancements go toward stimulating the economy and lining coffers of our own estates and shareholders and whatnot, right? But if we could shift away from that desire to turn a profit, and that's not to say not survive and not be comfortable and not thrive, but if we could prioritize again our relationship with each other and the world around us, as opposed to our need to keep up with the Joneses or whatever other metaphor we have for that, right? That seems to be the way forward for me. And again, I really love this. I just want to commend you guys too on this topic of adaptability, because that's what we're talking about, right? How do we adapt from this parasitic organism that just consumes everything around it for our own personal betterment? How do we adapt back into, right? It's the there's a word I'm looking for here where it comes, it's cyclic, right? Like we're tasked now with
Cyclical
going
creatures.
back. We're like we're trying to reinvent the wheel, but we already have all the information we need. We just need to go back and look at it with a different perspective, a different light.
No, that's valid. Yeah, that's I think a good segue.
Starting off our discussion today, we have Kevin. Kevin, is adaptability important in life to you?
Well, it's the core principle of evolution. Evolution is some of the most solid science we humans have ever developed, looking at how does a species survive long term, and it does it by adapting to changes in its local environment. If you survive, you get to pass on your genes. If you get overwhelmed by something in the environment, some cataclysm, whatever, like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, your line ends. So this is particularly relevant for us humans because right now the polar ice caps are melting, ocean levels are rising. Think about Houston, Miami, New Orleans. Oceans are filling up with plastic. Biodiversity, species are dropping because the insects are dying off. And people think, oh, yeah, that's cool. I don't like insects. Duh. They're the base of the animal food chain. Everything above them depends on eating those insects. So this is a huge wake up call the planet is giving us, slapping us with dope slaps in all different ways, saying, you people better wake up and figure out how you're going to adapt your extractive economy, which thinks you can cut down all the trees and pull all the copper and stuff out of the ground and use it up and then just throw it away, as if the economy is linear and you can use material, you do what you do with it and then throw it away. There's no way. We're on a small little spaceship Earth. There is no way. And pretty soon, it's already happening, we're going to start running out of that stuff. But the positive part of that is it means recycling, upcycling, taking stuff out of the waste stream, not producing waste in the first place, but taking stuff out of the waste stream and making stuff out of it. There's a really good example. Some buddies of mine created a energy bar company. They saw that at beer breweries, the grain that was left over from the brewing of beer still had a lot of nutritional content. Well, for the beer brewers, that grain is waste, and they got to pay to have it be taken away. So these buddies of mine, they went to him and said, "Hey, we'll take it away for free." And it became the main ingredient to their energy bars. And they got a thriving business now. And now they're spreading into other products because they're finding lots of stuff that gets tossed considered waste. The planet's going to do fine. After we're gone, all of our buildings and all the plastic and all that kind of stuff, nature will eventually consume that stuff and incorporate it into the next stage of Mother Earth. There's a really good example here in Quincy, going out toward Meadow Valley, on the Meadow Valley Road toward Meadow Valley. I walk off into the woods and I see what looks like some old asphalt underneath all the ground cover. I scrape it away. Oh, sure, it's the old Meadow Valley Road. You would never know it was there. It's already been overgrown by Mother Nature. She's taken it all back. So don't worry about the planet. Worry about our ability to survive in a healthy way on this planet. We need to be helping each other figure out how are we going to feed all the children? How are we going to reverse global climate change? What I call climate chaos, because that's what it is. You just saw in Mexico, Hurricane Otis, in one day, 24 hours, it went from tropical storm, not even a Cat 1, not even a Category 1 hurricane, it went to Category 5. This stuff can come to you. I'm living in a floodplain. The valley, the American Valley, surrounded by mountains. If we got 20 inches of rain, like Greece did, and like Beijing, China, and Ireland and Scotland, and all these other places where they get, several months of rain in one day, where I'm sitting right now would be underwater. So this stuff is coming home to roost. Mother Nature's given us a lot of dope slaps, and in order to adapt intelligently, we need to pay attention to those dope slaps and start acting. In order to adapt, we need to pay attention to all these signals that Mother Nature has given us and act accordingly.
That's a really good point. And there's something I wanted to bring up with that. With last week's topic, or last episode's discussion around solutionaries, the point you brought up, I wanted to bring that with the adaptability point. Do you think that there are aspects where people need to improve upon the self development and their adaptability with society and how the economy is changing right now, with green development? Do you think there's things they can invest in, tools they can invest in, resources that you would recommend people keep their eyes on?
Yeah, definitely. I have a book. Myself and a couple of colleagues did this book, Building the Green Economy, Success Stories from the Grassroots, where we went around and we looked at success stories where people got organized and they said, we're not going to accept this. Putting windmills on Native American reservations, blocking a toxic waste dump, getting forestry people and environmental people together to work together on how we're going to steward the forest. This is something we really got to be careful about and pay attention to, or it'll bite us in the ass.
Yeah, that's a very valid point, and I think we really need to keep in mind that it's, as much as it's a social, scale thing, that we need to have individual environments where we're stable enough to bring up solutions that make sense for the day-to-day scheduling and resources, because not everyone has equal resources. That's something to keep in mind all the time. And I feel like we get a little out of touch with that. when it comes to our reality with nature, that it will adapt. And ultimately, if we become more efficient, we're doing our nature of adaptability to line up naturally with a better set of steps in motion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's why I use the term solutionaries. We have to be solutionaries. No pessimism, none of this, oh, it's too late, we can't fix it, oh, it's not really a problem. None of that stuff helps you. None of it is showing you positive things people are doing to fix what's wrong. But there's all sorts of positive stuff that's going on. It's just that people don't hear about it because you don't sell tires and toothpaste by making it happen, and you want fearful and feeling that they lack something. And oh, if I go out and buy some commodity and consume it, that's going to make me complete as a human. No, that hole inside of loneliness is because you don't have good enough relationships with other people and with nature. It's why there's really good science of why do they bring puppies and kittens into old folks' homes? Because right away it improves their health. You know, I did my doctoral dissertation on apartheid in South Africa, separating people out and creating walls in between them. We need to create bridges and connect people. We are a social species. We exist in relationship to other people. So if we went around the world and we did an opinion poll and we said, okay, you got two choices for how we're going to run the world. One is success and great adaptability is about acquire money and build up a big bank account and have a big house and cars and all that stuff? Or what's the quality of your relationships with other humans and with Mother Nature? Quality or quantity? Most people in the world are going to pick quality. So already the majority of the world's people understand at a very deep level that where we're going is not cool. And we got to change direction toward a regenerative, circular economy that doesn't waste, that recycles and upcycles and uses everything over and over again, that doesn't throw plastic in the ocean. All of that, people are realizing that now. And that's why you get a sense of global revolution, that it's a values revolution where people are realizing, wait a minute, we can't think just as a nation state anymore. No, the problems we face are planetary. And it's only with planetary consciousness and thinking as a whole species that we're going to save humanity from itself. Because right now, we're headed for the cliff.
It's all good. I actually have a couple of points to add in there, and then we have a late joiner that we'll introduce in just a moment. So, my first thing was you kind of pretty much answered it at the end there. It's a question for the entire group. Do you think in our need for adaptability as humans that we will end up having to colonize other planets, or do you think that we'll be able to fix our mistakes here on Earth, that we'll be able to adapt to the repercussions of our past actions? In addition to that thought, when you were talking about generative AI and how they probed with AI and they ran a series of tests. Do you think that part of human adaptability is the scientific method and having to experiment with something in order to try and understand it first before we can truly adapt to it?
That process of seeking the truth is something that is rejected by the Republican Party in Congress and the Republican Party in most of our states. They don't accept climate change. You know, basic stuff. That burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and we got some serious challenges ahead of us. And that's why I do education work. That's why I substitute at the high school, why I taught college, why I wrote 13 books, to try and educate people to say, look, we can understand this stuff if we're willing to do the work and study it. So we have that capability to figure stuff out.
And honestly, Kevin, we're gonna move forward to aquatics. Next points. Aquatic, would you like to respond with your point on what makes adaptability important?
Yeah, absolutely. I just also want to remind you that we do have Jeff waiting in the background to be introduced. We could probably do that quickly first, and then we can proceed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jeff, would you like to say hello? Welcome in today.
I'm still running around dealing with morning stuff. I got to turn my phone around so that you could see me.
Yeah, no problem.
But good day, everybody. I've got to finish a couple things up, and then I can come right back if you want to move to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll give you a few minutes to ready up. Just go ahead and show us your video when you're ready.
This is a fun topic for me. I've actually been having this conversation a lot lately, both in my professional life and my personal life. I have a couple notes on this. I think adaptability is important in a lot of ways, in a lot of different aspects to the human existence and to nature's existence. As Kevin touched base on, if you let a city go to ruin, it quite literally will go to ruin. Mother Nature will take everything back over to the point where asphalt will collapse, concrete will collapse, and it will be as it was before. So we always say we're trying to preserve the planet when we say that we're trying to adapt and we're trying to grow and expand as a species. But in reality, we're trying to preserve ourselves. So that self-preservation aspect baked into most animals. We want to survive, as Kevin said. We want to continue our species and to carry on our genes. It's, I think, hard baked into all, if not most, animals, and that we happen to gain a collective communication system, and we happen to be a large species with fine motor skills. We got the long end of the stick in this case, where our adaptation can happen very quickly, and you see this in 1500 or 500 years ago in the 1500s, 1600s. Our progression as a human species, we understood irrigation, we understood crop diversity, we understood a wide variety of very useful skills for survival. But to think that in 600 years we have developed computers, developed televisions, radio signals, all of these things, and then miniaturized them to the point where it's handheld, to the point where you do things in your hand now that 600 years ago hadn't even been conceptualized yet, is an unbelievable show of what human adaptation and human progress can look like. And I think the point I raised earlier as to, do I think that humans will have to colonize other planets? I think that we're going to come into a weird apex where our ability to fix the damages we have done are basically going to coalesce with our ability to reach other planets and terraform them. Because it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who said, if you have the power to terraform another planet to be Earth-like, why didn't you just terraform Earth to be Earth-like? And most of the answer comes from commerce. You need to strip that planet of its resources so that humans can continue to expand, because you need things to continue to do things. And there are a finite amount of resources on our planet. There are an unbelievable amount of resources on our planet, but you can't mine all of Earth's iron. You can't mine all of Earth's gold. That's 95% of our liquid molten core. So I'm kind of going on a tangent here. I'm basically just setting the scope of human adaptation. But why I think adaptation is important is because I think that in the next 100 to 200 years, where we progress as a species, as Kevin touched base on, we really need to converge in a place where we're focusing on equal opportunity or equal outcome for all humans. We don't have people starving on the streets. We don't have people struggling for food while other people are trying to come up with the next get rich quick scheme using AI, using the next technology, using the next big thing. Adaptation isn't exploitation. Adaptation is pushing humanity forward and not pushing just myself forward, not just pushing any one person forward. We are a collective. We're not a hive mind, but we are a species. And if we're serious about our species carrying on, it takes more than just myself. It takes more than any one of us. It takes a society to raise a child, is the saying. And I truly believe that it takes all of us working together to understand the true potential of human growth.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. It takes unity, in these kinds of big projects, or else even with the molecular level, biologically, and anatomically speaking, it's glued together by tons of bonds. Um, it's a very fascinating thing what nature does to adapt. But is there any more points you want to make on that, Cactus, or should we move forward?
Yeah, actually, I do. I just wanted to see if anyone had anything to say before I kept going on my large diatribe there. But I want to touch base on why adaptability is important to me. I personally find that in my past, I've been not very adaptive, and I've found it has stunted my relationships with the people that I value. I found that it stunted my personal growth, and it's at times stopped me from challenging different concepts and different ideas that I would like to keep pushing. And because of that, I find that taking an adaptive approach to every outlook in my life moving forward now, being willing to take challenges on as they come instead of shying away from difficult situations, has really allowed me to figure out who I am as a person, better set boundaries with the people I interact with, establish better relationships and connections, because I have a better sense of understanding of who I am, and I have a better sense of gaining understanding of who other people are. And I think that's why adaptability to me is a really big aspect of my life. And it's why I hope to inspire those around me to take on adaptive behavior.
Well, I think that's a good branch, and honestly, yeah, I think that's inspiring. There's tons of unity behind what you're saying, uh, and
Thank you.
it's yeah, it's a good point. I think a lot of people should consider with society as it is. There's a lot of negatives to be said, and the more positive that we can bring to the picture and build up more positive roots and positive directions to move with our lines of thought, I think it's beneficial to the collective. It's something that needs to be addressed more casually, more openly, because if we're not adapting, we're not surviving correctly. It's in our nature through survival to want to adapt and go down a path that makes the most sense for our resources. Unfortunately, it sounds good on paper. It's one of those things that is ideally working, but it obviously isn't because we're not treating our resources with respect. And I wanted to touch base, Kevin. Did you have a response you wanted to make earlier?
Well, just one point about the thing about terraforming another planet. Elon Musk does this big thing. Oh, Mars. Mars in summer at the equator has temperatures at about 90 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. So, in order to live there, it's going to cost you way more money than it would to fix what's wrong here. So just in terms of expenditure, but see, if you're a billionaire, you can piss away money on all sorts of crazy stuff. And if it doesn't work out, oh, well, it was a business venture and we didn't do this or it failed. Yeah. And you just wasted a lot of time and a lot of money on a stupid venture. So, we're not going to be living on other planets for quite a while.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, actually, and it touches back on what Cameron was talking about there about wasted resources, about not valuing resources. How many potential projects got started and then scrapped, and now were never recycled, were never refurbished in any way, shape, or form, but now just sit idly somewhere in a warehouse collecting dust, or were a building in and of themselves and were just decommissioned for no purpose other than it was a failed venture. And I think capitalistic society has a lot of room to push human adaptation. I just think that it puts a lot of negative pressure where it allows some people to succeed, but very much at the expense of other people. And I don't think that our society will flourish, and I think we'll have to adapt to a system that we haven't discovered yet. Because if we had discovered it, we would know if it works, or at least if it works better than what we currently do. And the idea of billionaires just throwing away resources is pretty crazy. But as I said, I feel like in the next couple hundred years, we're going to reach a point where those resources are a little bit more intelligently distributed, in the sense that people are going to start to get furious. It's going to be like the days of factory owners would open up their front doors and you have an angry mob with pitchforks out front. The starving are going to get angry and riots are going to happen. You can't have billionaires on the same planet as you have starving people. It just doesn't work. And I think that we need to change the system. And I think that's why discussions like today, where we're talking about how to be adaptive and how to start talking about change, is a really important place to begin.
And if I may, it's honestly something that I agree with that point about being prepared for these discussions and understanding what these discussions mean, because it makes me feel uncomfortable personally trying to think about where I fall in context to the problem. There's obviously a problem in society where things are not collectively all right. Like, yeah, you could say there's things that there's certain aspects that are working, but mentally we're not really healthy. There's problems with the food chain, there's problems with um just media overload, there's different problems with health and education systems that people they don't agree. And arguably that's been a tale as time, but when it comes down to the planet's health, that's something that we can't argue with facts directly against it, because there's not much that hasn't changed. Everything's always changing with the earth. So how could you not naturally feel inclined to feel like we're causing or instilling a boost or even a form of that change in our existence of being here? So if we know that we're causing change by just collectively being, maybe adapting our reality as to what could be a solution into more of like, what solutions can we instill, what solutions can we try or attempt. It takes hard questions to get hard results. All right, well, with that being said, we're going to move into Benjamin Heaney's points here. Benjamin, would you like to respond?
Yeah, actually, I think listening to everyone, like both Kevin and Aquatic, and just listening to everyone's perspective, it's given me a lot to think about, especially in regards to adaptability. To start with the first point of what makes adaptability important in life, the reason that we as an archaeologist and as an anthropologist who's been studying like human development and how we as a species have adapted, our ability to adapt is what has allowed us to do all this, to be able to have a house with all these materials, to be able to use technology. If and another to add on to that after a minute, um, adaptability is crucial. That is, as said, what has allowed us to do all this. The individual being able to to run into issues or to be confronted by a problem and being able to solve it and get around it and continue to progress and live and grow is extremely important. And what I actually find interesting is the discussion of technology. Technology is a how did I say yeah is a tool of extensive adaptability where our ability to adapt as a species or as an individual ends based off of our physical and biological limits. Technology then allows us to exceed. Simplest way to say the plow. Beginning of agriculture, if you had a group of 5 people who had to go through, break the soil, open it up, be able to put the seeds in for agriculture, water it, take care of it. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of energy and a lot of resources. The more people you have, the better, but that also means the more people you have to feed. What the
Less
plow,
sustainable.
yeah, exactly. What technology such as the plow has allowed us to do is be able to harness, oh, let's see, I can domesticate this bull or this cow. I can be able to then just take a piece of wood, kind of harness it between these two animals, and with just one person and another person falling behind, you're able to better manage your energy and time, which then allows for more time to be able to go and cultivate this field, this one, expand, grow a surplus, all of which relates to social complexity, which I'll get into with another point later. So I say that it is extremely important. Another one that was being talked about earlier is AI. AI is also a tool of adaptability. One that that kind of simulates the human mind, but at the same time still requires human input to be able to function. I was talking with a friend of mine recently about coding, and what he was talking about is that a machine only does what it's told to do. If there's an error within it, it is more often not a human error, which it was really interesting to think about. Of like, an AI can make all these decisions, it can observe an outcome, at least from my perspective of someone who isn't in coding or doesn't do a lot of technological development. It's really interesting to see that, like, oh, this machine can see an incident, make a decision, understand maybe not understand the outcome, but observe the outcome and then use that later to make a decision. As said, the case with the deer. If the self-driving vehicle comes to a stop because there's a deer in front of it or something, it's registering that and then sharing that out. That allows then a more rapid understanding of adaptability because the machine now is able to go and do all these certain things. Also, if I'm getting messed up at all, my ADHD only allows me to focus on so much. So if there's a point that maybe you could use a little more description, just let me know.
No, I think you're doing well, Ben. But if I may, I actually wanted to bring up a point. Do you think, and this goes for you and Aquatic, since so far we've heard a AI discussion from both of you now. Do you think AI is something that we should fear on the day-to-day average, or should we utilize it more and accept that this is no different than steel over iron or iron over bronze, like that this is essentially becoming the current the single focus of the economic engine, where collective efficiency, documentation, just having these systems that are able to calibrate and adapt, almost seemingly instantaneous in our nature of seeing it, to the data that they're being fed, processed. I'm just curious. I'm just curious morally if you guys think that it should be a moral discussion, philosophical discussion, or one of like, oh well, this is something that we're using to get us to a state of being able to focus better.
I am of the belief that, as said, AI is a tool as any other tool. This it's a little more, it kind of borders. It's a little bit different, just simply because of how quick, how I think human like it is. Like if you look at ChatGPT, let's see. I was speaking with my dad, who does his own coding. I think actually, Cameron, you and when you did a podcast with him, I believe that you guys touched on ChatGPT and using it for coding. Or I could be misled.
Yeah,
yes,
we did.
Yeah, exactly. Where he was talking about, trying to go through and write all this coding, you can simply put in something to ChatGPT and it will go ahead and write this program for you. You may have to tweak it a bit to be able to get it to work to your specific conditions, but that is such a rather than going and spending a couple hours on trying to work it all out, you then have a pre-made script that you can then go implement and just tweak as you need. I think it regards to AI, it is both a tool that is up for up to the user's desires. So you can use it for coding, data collection, interaction in a social aspect. Like Snapchat has a chat bot that's basically an AI in and of itself. So there's that tool aspect that I think is kind of, it's the same of like, I have a pickaxe, I use it for digging, but then I can also use it to harm someone else. Was that its original intent? No. It has its initial intent, but can also be used in other ways. Then that breaks into the moral and philosophical aspect. There's a lot of science fiction that talks about this. Dune, Warhammer 40K. In Dune, there was the Valerian Jihad, which was a crusade against all thinking machines because AI basically rebelled. Humanity had to go and crush it, and then humanity had to adapt from that. They could no longer rely on machines. The Sisterhood has a saying, a machine or computer will not be made in the likeness of a human mind. Something paraphrasing, but it's along that vein of like that technology exceeded there, humanity had to then adapt to create human calculators and thinking machines that are capable of all these immediate calculations. So it breaks down into that philosophical aspect of, at what point does our technology as a tool of adaptability become, we see this a lot with AI, where the concern for it is it going to become sentient? At what point does something become sentient? Can a tool be considered a human? If it requires all that input, can it think for itself? Can it make those deductions and decisions and understand the outcomes and consequences of those decisions?
Yeah, I think that's well said. Cactus, would you like to comment?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple points on both of those points. I agree. Sentience is certainly a focus that I think that a lot of people fear with AI. However, I'm going to pose a couple of different scenarios. The first one being, Kevin mentioned the AI generative voice grabbing. That one is a scary feature. That one is a very scary feature, because what is stopping a scammer from calling your kids, getting a snippet of their voice, using an AI generative to call your parents again and say, "Hey, mom. Hey, dad. I forgot my social. Can you send it to me? I need it for this." It opens up a lot of scam opportunities, because AI is getting a little bit too comparable to humans, to the point where you mentioned on Snapchat they have a chatbot. On Instagram, there's an influencer who quite literally has an AI version of herself, down to an avatar and chat lines and everything, that you can rent to go on dates with for, I think it's like $30 for some outrageously short period of time. Don't quote me on the statistics on that. But other weird things about AI, Snapchat and filters. We're coming into an era where video and photo evidence in a crime are no longer applicable, where our justice system hasn't caught up to that yet, where they don't understand. Like, I have a video of you doing it. You're on video. It's like, okay, but that video could literally be AI generated. That video could literally be, they took my frame, fed it to an AI, used the AI to rearrange the pixels of an already established figure, and it just becomes me. And they've showcased this. There's different demonstrations of face robbing and voice robbing technology. They used it on a America's Got Talent presentation. They used incredibly advanced AI software to take Simon Cowell's voice and facial representation, and did a visual presentation of him singing. I can't remember the song, but it's a very well-known song, and he definitely didn't sing it. It's scary. It's do I think we're all gonna die tomorrow? No. But as Benjamin mentioned, the pickaxe wasn't intended as a weapon, but it can certainly be used as one. Nuclear energy was originally being researched as a fuel source, and they found out about its destructive potential and was eventually used for weaponized purposes. So it's every technology we discover, there's a term called the doomsday clock, and it ticks closer to midnight, which is human destruction. It's human annihilation. Every time we discover a new technology that pushes us towards being a class 1 civilization on the Kardashev, that's a hard word to say when you're tired, Kardashev scale, pushes us potentially closer to a doomsday event. Every time we tamper with something like nuclear energy or nuclear fission, we don't understand the repercussions until the repercussions happen. So we have an idea, we have theories, and the more that we understand of everything that we experience, the more that we have a better theory of what is going to happen. And it's why I believe that human adaptation is such a crucial element, because without human adaptation, we would wipe ourselves off the face of the planet very quickly. We have the desire to survive, but we are incredibly experimental and curious beings, and we like to play with things. AI is the latest version of that, except AI is the only version where it can write code. It's a code-based program. How far before it figures out how to enter its own prompts, before it figures out to write its own code? And it's an exponential learning curve. So it starts out like this, and it's going to go like this very quickly. Things are going to escalate at an incredibly fast pace. They're going to learn faster than we're going to be able to keep up with the systems that we're developing. And I think the level of unknown that will propel us into is a scary place. So I don't necessarily think that we need to be scared of AI. I think we need to be scared of human potential of not limiting AI.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point to form with it, because if you're not aware, how can you even address that it's a problem? And I see, Benjamin, would you like to respond to this too?
Yeah, so Aquatic actually brings up a really good point. The Instagram influencer who has that chatbot that can rent out. One thing that I was thinking, yeah, the AI dater. One thing that also Kevin was bringing up in regards to, I can't remember specifically what it was, but I wanted to talk about specifically culture, and kind of how it really influences us as a species. Because the thing we have to think about is that while we can have this conversation here, there may be some people out there who are having it. The way in which we use technology and the way that we understand it is going to be different than across the rest. There are similarities, specifically within Western culture, I think. But then again, I can't speak for someone who lives in the Philippines. I can't speak for someone who lives in South and Latin America. But what I can say is specifically for the US, the way in which we as a society and as a culture approach not only like climate change and, or as Kevin said, climate chaos, or even just technology in the market in general, is that it's significantly different for every person that you talk to, different regions you go to. That kind of adaptability culture is, from what I understand, from my perspective, at least as someone who's studying anthropology, is practices and traditions that are kind of set in a certain way, that are continued and practiced. The issue is that if we want to be able to kind of change how we think about not only the world, our impact on the climate and the rest of the species on this planet, but then also on technology, is there has to be a cultural change. The thing is that if you try to control culture, if you try to impose a certain way, that essentially is creating a form of tyranny. I keep going back to Dune just because I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and it's a series that I'm really enjoying reading. In God Emperor of Dune, it's a very tyrannical existence for any people. Space travel is extremely limited. Technology is controlled to such a point, and the concept of free will is basically non-existent, or at least it's a very limited form of it. And so, but to be able to but that is set. The reason that's the way is that because the God Emperor Leto has a very specific path that he wants to go for humanity. And so he's controlling culture to that as extent to be able to reach that point. And I think that's really kind of where we as not only a society, but as a global species are going to kind of run into that issue. And I think that's going to become a kind of a larger problem to try to solve, or at least address, is because the way that a Native American or an indigenous American may think is going to be completely different to a Russian oligarchist. The way that they view themselves in the world, their impact on the environment, how they themselves as a species, is going to be significantly different. So being able to have these conversations is going to be important, but being able to peacefully and collectively express our identities is significantly it's going to be an issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed and overcome.
Very good points. Very good points, honestly. And I think that's something that we can move forward with in my points. I actually think that adaptability, well, it's something we all deal with, and that's something I brushed on earlier with society. You know, there's things we can all relate to, right? And I don't think there's a correct way to necessarily be adaptable. Um, there's not a correct form, so to speak. It's like philosophy or an art. You you come to your own interpretation of the beast and the life ahead to determine where you best fit in the processes going on, where you can best present yourself in the situation. And I think why it's important for us to consider this question today, especially on my personal perspective with it, is there's always more that you can learn when it comes to being situationally aware. And if you're not open to the facts around you that there's potential for mistakes to be made in that adaptability process, then you're kind of shutting yourself off from opportunity to learn. And you need those instances where you see people doing, something different than you naturally do, and stepping in to help guide them on a choice because you think it's going to help them understand a little better in their process through life. That's the kind of building blocks that anyone can do just by paying attention, and it doesn't necessarily rely heavily on a sense of, oh, my IQ is too high to deal with that person's problem. Or, oh, they can't figure out how to uh you know dump the trash in the trash bin. um maybe maybe I could help them, but no, I don't feel like it. No, I feel like there's a big sense to it that um you you really need to focus, and focus your direction as a person dealing with other directions constantly. If you don't have a center to gravitate towards, to pull towards, then you're wasting your time. You're not necessarily building on a structure that's foundational, that's going to stand. You're maybe blowing ideas out that maybe you'll tether to, maybe you'll think about. That's something I love to say. Oh, I'll think about it, and I know I do it, but I let myself do it. And when am I going to put my foot down and be like, this is a real thing I'm saying? Maybe I don't feel like I want it to be real, but if I'm not taking it serious now, when am I going to step up and address the situation at hand? And it's hard to do that. Those are real questions that you don't want to look yourself in the mirror and ask all the time. But part of being adaptable is accepting that the discomfort is a part of it, because if you don't feel like adaptability shouldn't have that, like if it should lack that, then I think you're missing the point of adaptability. It's to prepare you for those challenges, for those moments where you're in discomfort. You're not necessarily all together, and maybe you can get a little better and a little more efficient and effective at handling yourself in those situations, those high stress, high volume. And I just want to welcome Dan in. Thank you for being here today, Dan. Um, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I apologize for being late, and just appreciate being here with you guys. I'm gonna just sit here and listen and observe and get myself up to speed on what's going on. So far, it sounds really fascinating. I can't wait to hear more.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll go ahead and
Excellent.
have you respond. Just so you're on the same page, we're going through and asking everyone what makes adaptability important in life. So ponder that while we come back to Jeff and see what his point is on adaptability. Jeff, would you care to respond?
Sounds great.
Sure. Hope you guys can see me okay.
Yeah, you're
Um,
fine. A little further out. Yeah, there you go. You don't have
okay.
to bring us so close.
Yeah, I'm just kind of holding my phone. I'm going to be brief. AI is programmed to think a certain way by the person who's programming the AI. So it can be taught to think in certain directions. Um, when it comes to human adaptability, if you don't adapt, you just die. It's been like that since humans were created. Um, we were given the ability to adapt for a reason. Back to the AI thing, it's I believe at this moment it is being used. It's like a toy dangled in front of a child to the general populace, but the people that are in control are designing it and using it for further control of the people, and then presenting it as a shiny object. Ooh, look over here. Um, when it comes to terraforming that Kevin was talking about, um, we should stop terraforming this planet before we start terraforming some other planet. In my opinion, the aluminum and the barium they're spraying all over the place is causing all these explosive wildfires. I just ran across an article today uh, that was written in 2018 regarding the volatility of fire after the aluminum and the barium have been sprayed over an area. And I'll leave that right there. That can be up for further discussion. Um, Last night it was 19 degrees here in Quincy, and it was a bit chilly. Uh, Most of the garden is done. And I'm going to make some flank steak tacos for dinner tonight. And with that, I'll leave it to the rest of you guys.
We're really having a good time having this discussion, and honestly, I know that Cactus wanted to ask the group a little bit of a discussion question here. Cactus, would you like to take it away?
Absolutely. So earlier I was just wondering, I feel like this is a really good transition question. How does the group feel is the best way to be more adaptable? So for our listeners who are going to be wondering, we've had all these discussions about why adaptability is important to us, what adaptability means to us. So do you guys have any suggestions, personal, how you've interacted with your peers and people you aspire to be like, that where adaptability could be given to other people, and any advice on how to be more adaptable?
I think that having patience is the most prominent one that I see. About any situation in life, you can apply patience to, and it becomes a little better, a little bit
Especially if you're a
more.
psychiatrist.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's a good point too. Humor is also a very valid point to be had when it comes to a challenge, growing pains, so to speak. You really need to present yourself in a way that's not gonna you're not judging yourself necessarily on being identical to how you were yesterday. You're framing yourself on what you can see improved, what you can see happened, and maybe it was a bad thing that happened, but you laughed about it, and it's a good thing because now it's funny, and it was a really stupid moment, and here you are. You have some more story to tell, and that at the end of the day is important to be able to move forward. Progression, patience, and humor, I think, are the three that help um, me with my personal struggles. And it doesn't always work, but that there's not only those three things to consider in life, is there? There's a bunch of things to consider.
So what I'm hearing, Cameron, is you have to be adaptable in your approach to becoming more adaptable.
Yes, precisely. As crazy as it
Perfect.
sounds,
That's good to hear.
life's not necessarily meant to be simple. It's simple or complex as you want it to be. So I just choose to kind of treat it complex. I think it is that wired together, and you really do have to constantly expect the unexpected, but you don't have to treat that like walking on eggshells. You could just live your life and learn how to better take the punches.
Gotcha. Does anyone else? Dan, you got your hand up?
Yeah, Dan, go for it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Wow, what a fascinating conversation. I think for me, one of the things that has helped me in becoming adaptable is patience, for sure. I definitely want to echo the patience, but also a detachment from my desired outcomes, right? And a little bit of this too is like offering up. There's different ways to word this. Offering, in the Catholic religion, of which I'm a recovering person, you sacrifice and you offer that up for God. And I think that's a little, that can, there's some drudgery in that, right? But the believing in a higher power and a higher purpose and helps us to accept that we don't have the answers, and that even though I made this plan and it's a good plan and it's based on what I want to do, like life is what happens while we're making other plans, right? And it's very easy to become frustrated by that. Man, I can't, just to get frustrated by the hurdles that life throws in front of us. But holding the perspective that those hurdles and those wrenches in our planning monkey works, right, are God, right? Well, I don't know if you want to, whatever God, Allah, great spirit, creator, right? Like however you want to refer to that higher power that has created this wonderful adventure for us, right? Like putting your faith in that these roadblocks are actually that higher power steering you, guiding you. Maybe your plan wasn't in alignment with your divine purpose or your higher purpose, right? And so these roadblocks, as we would call them, right, as we humans would call them, these roadblocks can be frustrating, but just holding that perspective, right, that we are but humble servants, and allowing those to steer us. And that's been really transformational for me, because I came in right here at the end. You guys were talking about discomfort and how to deal with discomfort and the challenges of discomfort. And what I've found is that I spent a lot of my life trying to cultivate joy and happiness and get away from discomfort. And that just led me to like banging my head against a wall, right? And what I discovered is that happiness is a conscious choice. Happiness doesn't arrive when you get it all figured out. We choose to be happy, right? We choose to experience joy. We choose to detach from the hustle and the bustle and make time for the things that are really important for us. And so circling back to discomfort, what I learned was that the discomfort is actually my roadmap to success. If I'm comfortable and I'm just sitting around with my feet up, sipping on a pina colada in a hammock somewhere, like my body is atrophying and dying, right? Comfort, as soon as we lay down to go to sleep at night, our muscles start to atrophy. And it's when we're challenged, it's when we're working hard, it's when we're seeking new solutions to new problems. That's when we are thriving, and that's when we are growing and learning and overcoming. And unfortunately, those are like the most uncomfortable moments, right? Like we don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to be warm. We don't want to be tired. But it's through those discomforts that we're actually improving ourselves. And I think to link that back around, right, to the divine, right? Like sometimes the messages that I'm just going to use the word God, right? And it's not just because that's the most common word, right? I think we can all relate. What I'm talking about again is just the higher power. But those roadblocks that God throws us, they are quite waiting for the one that's not uncomfortable. They're all unexpected. They're all not a part of the plan. They're all uncomfortable. But when we lean into those, that's when we are answering God's call, the divine call. And I'm gonna just wrap that up, right, with we are creatures of habit, right? And if our habit is to seek out comfort, if our habit is to shy away from discomfort, then our path is going to move away from that path that's intended for us, or not align with it as well as it possibly could, right? But when we lean into that discomfort, then habit, right? But then if we practice, man, I really don't want to do that. I feel like I'm being called to do that. But that really doesn't sound fun to me. I really don't want to do that. But you know what? I'm going to have faith. I'm going to have faith, and I'm going to trust in the universe and in God that this is something that I am meant to do. And so I'm going to do it with a smile on my face. And then that can start to become habit, right? And it's not that these challenges are any more comfortable or any less uncomfortable. It's that we become better. We adapt, right? We adapt to meeting these things with a full head of steam and with a smile on our face and with confidence that we are walking the paths, not necessarily that we choose, but the paths that have been chosen for us. How's all that? How's any of that resonating?
No, it's well said, Dan. Truly.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to lead very well said. I have a segue I would like to jump into there. I'm going to get the exact quote wrong, but I'll give you the gist of it because that's what's important. You mentioned leaning into discomfort, and every barrier is going to be uncomfortable. There's never going to be a time where it's going to be like, well, here's a comfortable house fire. Here's a comfortable moment of grief. Those don't exist. Life is full of moments of adversity, and I think someone mentioned the term you got to roll with the punches, and life very much does throw some punches your way. The quote that I want to mention here, again, I'm going to get it wrong, is when you start to do something uncomfortable, you're doing the hardest version of something. Anytime you're beginning something, if you're starting a business, if you're starting a friendship, if you're starting a relationship, if you're doing anything, the start of it is the most difficult the situation is going to be. It's the very worst it's ever going to be at the start because you have the least understanding, the least hands-on experience, the least network of support that's there to help you. You don't know what you need yet. You are learning to be the most successful version by doing the hardest part first. And it's that quote stuck with me. Again, I wish I could remember the exact quote, but the meaning stuck with me because that really drives home how important it is to be adaptive of people, of surroundings, of your own understanding of situations. And I think the group consensus that I'm kind of hearing is that a really big part of adaptation and adaptability is self-awareness. And part of that comes from having access to information, either whether that be from your peers or access to textbooks or higher education, things like that. Wherever you get that information from, that you have access to it, and that you're able to do proper self-reflection.
I honestly have a point with something you and I've discussed on our podcast episode together on the World Networking podcast. We went over your experience with, I believe, billiards coach. Um,
Yeah,
Correct me
yeah,
if I'm
Harold
wrong.
Green.
Yeah, the aspects where it's excitement.
Anxiety and excitement. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
excitement. It, that goes with the self-awareness aspect of what you're saying, and I just wanted to relay that. I thought that was a cool point that you just made because that ties into a core value that you carry, which is that lesson that you hold on to, and I think that's just a really cool tie-in, man. And I wanted to bring awareness because I don't know if you consider what you're saying tying in with that. I think that's a cool point.
no, I very much do. And just for clarification, he's talking about a billiards lesson I had. I was very young. It was with Harold Green, a former professional Canadian pool coach and former professional Canadian pool player. Um, he's a very talented billiards coach, and he's 83 years old when I met him. I don't believe he's still alive. Um, the lesson he taught me, one of the very first things he asked me is like, "Are you nervous?" And I had just driven 3 hours for a pool lesson. I was 13 years old, and like, there's people I had no idea who they were that were there just watching the lesson. It was weird. And like a whole part of the pool hall sectioned off. And absolutely, I was nervous. But he said to me, "Oh, there's a fly trying to be part of the video." He said to me, "The way the brain processes nervousness and excited is exactly the same." Fuck off. Is exactly the same way. So you experience the same emotion for nervousness and excitement. And so it's up to you, as Dan said, to decide if you're going to come at any situation with joy or with malice or discontent, or if you're going to come at it with steam and energy, and you're going to come at it with motivation and passion. It's a choice. You choose to do those things, and some days it is certainly harder than others, but there's a reason that those two things both resonate with me, and I'm glad that you picked up on the connection between the two, because they're both about adaptation, and how you treat a situation is very important.
Yeah, and honestly, not to hog the stage here, but one point I do think that's important is we're all individuals here that are not necessarily, um, I would say, the status quo. Where we don't do normal, quote unquote, like we're not just firemen or just garbage men or just one thing. We've had a lot of different experiences and life journeys that have molded us into being the people that we are. And that was the thought behind the show is we're all on that intellectual adventure. We're literally carving our path in our brains to learn how to better find a link into this world, how to fit and understand ourselves and our place inside of the world. And I'm just very thankful that we can link into this kind of discussion right now because this is positive. This is what a positive, healthy discussion should be. These are the core fundamental steps I think that it takes to have these kinds of discussions, and part of doing that is making it formal, making it into something like this so we can take that time, even if it's for ourselves, extending out a medium for people to join us on this journey. If we're not doing this for ourselves at the core to become better people, well, what's the point of this journey?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Dan had a point he wanted to bring across first, and then we'll touch back on your point, Benjamin.
Sure thing.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Yeah, I just, Cactus, what you were saying about the way our brain responds, right, to nervousness versus excitement. I think there's also similarly, right, the way our bodies produce dopamine, right, and we get basically addicted to the dopamine, right, and giving in to our addictions is can be a dopamine hit too, right? And oftentimes the more comfortable path is the one that brings us the dopamine hit, right? And I take for an example, so there's two things that I can do if I really feel like I need to voice my opinion about one of these things. I can say go on social media and make a post, and then people are going to react to that. Sometimes it's negative, and then I get to fire back, right? And I get in this like shouting match on the internet with some person who disagrees with me. And this is hitting all the dopamine triggers, right? Like I'm feeling righteous. I feel like I really stuck it to them. I feel like, oh, there's one of the people that disagree with me and I just told them how it is. Or I can do the less exciting, much more sometimes time and energy consuming thing, and I can find the office, the person, the elected official who is responsible for this particular issue, and I can send them an email with all my thoughts, or I could call their office and I could talk to them, and sometimes they're not going to want, like, it's very easy to miss out on that dopamine hit with that route, right? Maybe they didn't even respond to my email. Maybe I need to send another one. The satisfaction is not as immediate, right? And I think that difference, right? So like the potential for payoff and for achieving what it is that I want to achieve. If I go the first route, it's immediate, but it's not that impactful, right? All I really did was like piss somebody else off and get myself all worked up, and probably gave the person who disagrees with me a bunch of ammunition as to why I'm wrong, right? As much as I did the other way around. But the dopamine hit was right away, right? It was a matter of seconds, minutes, whatever. If I go the other route, the dopamine hit might not ever come. It might never happen. But if I'm successful, or I'm actually going to make a change whose ripples will like resonate out through policy, through legislature, and through the way we do things. But again, chances are it's almost like paying it forwards, right? What comes to mind, we're big Star Wars fans. I'm going to close with this. We're big Star Wars fans in this house. And in one of the books we have, Luke is asking Yoda the difference between the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force. And Yoda essentially says, well, the dark side will bring you instant gratification. The light side is all about doing what you know is right, what you feel in your heart is right, and trusting that the rewards, the payoff, the benefit of doing that will come in the future. And so I guess I want to close with that and just tie that into, right, that ties into everything else about leaning into the discomfort, and also ties into like what we need to be aware of ourselves and be aware of our addictions and be aware of how we treat other people and be aware of where we get our excitement versus our nervousness. And when we're more aware of that, then we can choose actions and behaviors that more align with who we truly want to be and what we truly want to do.
It's a good segue to put you in for your answer to the question, what makes adaptability important in life?
But first, let's just go back to
Oh
Benjamin
yeah,
quickly.
Benjamin. Yeah, would you? I'm sorry about that. Would you like to reply?
Yeah, no worries. I'm like also trying to assemble my brain on all the great
Yeah.
points that are being made and try to pull together. Um, from my own personal experiences, and I think both you and I, Cameron, during COVID, when everything was just so tumultuous, nothing, any plans that may have been created just fell apart simply because everything changed so rapidly. It really just disrupted life and made things really uncomfortable. And I noticed myself getting really depressed. I started not being able to function as I used to. um and then one day you and I were hanging out, and you had mentioned Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism. And that for me really was kind of a turning point in my ability as an individual to adapt, because part of it is recognizing, kind of as Dan was saying, with the instant gratification um and the issues of finding someone on social media versus actually going to a senator or an elected official and talking with them and trying to express your issues and your concerns with a certain topic. It's understanding what is within your power and what is outside of your power. How you approach a situation is in your power. Not everyone that you're going to meet with is going to be kind to you. Everyone's going to be having a different day. As I said, we all come from different lives. I woke up this morning, and as groggy as I was feeling pretty good. But someone just down the block may be waking up and just feeling existential dread at a decision that's coming up. They may be dealing with grief. It's any number of things. But having an understanding of that, of compassion, and understanding that we as a species are adaptable, but also we were made for cooperation. The only reason that we were able to, going back to earlier talking about the field and being able to farm, is being able to work together. And so when we have that instant gratification of telling someone that they're wrong, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, you're so uneducated in this issue, I know everything that I need to know, and really kind of devaluing other people's experiences doesn't do anything for cooperation. We have to recognize that because we come from so many different backgrounds, we're all going to have different experiences and perspectives. But it's being open to adaptation, to receiving new information and being, oh, I never thought about this before. Being able to then change and improve yourself and being open to that change of perspective is incredibly important, as we were touching on. And I think with a lot with Stoicism, or with finding a philosophy that teaches you to understand what you're feeling in a moment: anger, excitement, anxiety. As Aquatic was saying, it's just like that's the same. The receptors for excitement and anxiety are this one and the same. So being able to try to understand what you're feeling going into this. Am I excited? Am I anxious? Am I both? Anxious with this archaeology job I just got. I was, super, when an opportunity came up for me to go into the field this week, I was super anxious because I was excited, but also anxious. I was like, wow, I finally get to do archaeology. This is so cool. But then I was also like, oh, but what about, being able to pay my bills? This is a part-time job. What am I going to be able to do? And having that self-awareness of what I'm feeling, what I'm concerned about, being able to go and then say, okay, let's step back and let's see the larger picture, I think is going to be having that same approach to discussing issues with people is also going to be extremely important. So, for me, being able to find a philosophy, it may not also be philosophy. As Dan said, it may be, regardless of what religion you may have grown up in, being able to even having to leave and then finding your own spirituality, your own philosophy is extremely important to being able to then go and adapt to your environment, and then to have conversations and have compassion for your fellow human. when you want to express a concern for a topic.
Yeah, I feel like that's a wonderful way to put it. It's a very elaborate way to put it.
Thank you.
It was well composed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's it definitely ties back into Cactus's point of self-awareness. You know, it's a massive point. That, and you know, maybe I guess that's one thing we could consider is, does that mean adaptability takes self-awareness? Or like, would we consider, based off of our discussion here, that they're more similar than we would have expected coming into this conversation? Because I mean, I hear it and I think about it, but I never really considered how closely related those two are.
Yeah, actually, this was a question I was trying to formulate for a while, and I think I can put it into words. I was trying to ask the group, what do you think drives human adaptation? Do you think it's our innate biological reactions? Do you think it's like what do you think is the drive behind adaptation? Do you think it is self-awareness? Do you think it is because we have the ability to be aware of our own actions and the impact they have, that allows us to then change a lot of the things around us? Or do you think it's another outside factor, or potentially a multitude of factors that influence human adaptation?
I think adaptation is if you know yourself well enough, you know what you're able to adapt to. If you don't know your limits, if you don't know yourself very well, then you may balk at a chance to adapt, thinking it would be too hard or too painful or both. Um, so to know yourself and your surroundings, because you've put yourself in those surroundings, to know yourself well is to be able to adapt well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
I
definitely
think
think that's.
I have something to add to that.
Yeah, go for it, Dan.
Oh, sorry, Cameron. I had a little glitch, and it seems like I stepped on you. Thank you. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
No, I think adaptability comes like because we are self-aware beings, then it requires self-awareness to be adaptable, right? But like nature, I think ultimately to me, the ability to adapt or adaptability is one of the foundational blocks of being able to survive, right? Like you cannot survive without being able to adapt. Look at there's like the new hybrid species of like coyote, wolf, dog that now live in urban areas. This is a new species that has adapted. Like it's a combination of these other animals that have adapted to live in that borderland between urban city environments and their natural environments. And that takes some sort of conscious effort on those animals, right? It might be subconscious. It's same with water, right? Like water is adaptable. Basically, it doesn't even have to think because of its ability to flow. It adapts to its environment because the environment changes, right? When it's running down a steep slope, it's going fast. When it hits a shallow slope, it goes slow. When it has a lot of sediment in it, it doesn't pick up a lot more sediment. When it doesn't have any sediment, then it's got plenty of room to pick stuff up and carry it, right? Then to the animals who basically are confined to the need to survive and provide for their young. And then you come to us humans who, because we are self-aware and then we need to consciously be adaptable, right? Like I don't know any species in nature that makes the conscious choice not to adapt, right? Or maybe they do, but then like natural selection has its way with them pretty fast, right? Whereas we humans, we've provided ourselves with enough technology and creature comforts and set things up so that we could just like, and a lot of us do, I think, sit and be fat and happy in our artificial environment that we've created. We choose not to adapt. We choose some sort of mundane routine because it's comfortable. But then even someone who's been doing that for their entire life can one day take a look at themselves and say, "Oh, man, I have been boring. I have been unadaptive. I'm very stagnant. I've got no flow in my life. I'm sick with this routine, and I'm gonna go switch it up." And I think they'll immediately find that that's very discomforting, uncomfortable. But then again, they have the choice. Okay, so this is really uncomfortable. Do I fall back into my old ways that are comfortable, or, yeah, this is uncomfortable, but I'm also really sick of the old way? Or maybe it doesn't have to necessarily be inspired by misery, right? Maybe there's something they want to do that just can't happen because of the way they're living their life. Man, I really want to accomplish this, but I need to lay the foundation. I need to either educate myself or acquire the skills or acquire the tools to be able to do that. So I've got to break my cycle and go out and acquire those things. And
it takes work to get that
investment. We have that's a choice, right? And that is a choice that we make because we are self-aware, we make the choice whether to improve or not to improve.
No, that's very well said, Dan. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I definitely see that point interweaving with how it takes the work to get any results. Everything takes work, and people that don't understand that the basis of that comes from time spent understanding it. It doesn't happen in a day, and you can't expect and pressure yourself when it comes down to neurological pathways. Like, you have to give yourself room to grow.
And be loving and kind and forgiving to yourself too, right? Like all of the quote unquote wisdom that I am able to share, all of the perspective that I'm able to share, right, it doesn't come from me like reading a book and like some sort of miraculous divine conceptualization. This comes from me like down in the trenches of life, struggling through shit, looking in the mirror and hating what I see, looking at the way things are in my life and being disgusted by it, and then wanting to do something about that, right? And so that becomes a gift then through those struggles and through those not overcoming, right, but through our triumphs, right, we learn. And even our triumphs give us confidence, right, but our failures give us knowledge. and I'm so good. I'm like probably one of the best people I know at beating myself up and being super hard on myself. But then like really, we are human, dude. We do make mistakes. It's okay whether we make a mistake and learn or succeed and learn, right? We're still learning. And ultimately, if our heart is in the right place and we come from a place of love and compassion and a place of service, then our mistakes are going to have a much, they're not going to be as catastrophic, right? And we're not going to hurt people as much along the way, as long as we're coming from that place of love, right? If we're coming from a place of selfishness or ego, then it's really easy to hurt people along the way and cause a lot of collateral damage, I suppose.
Yeah, a little philosophy that I try to live by here in terms of personal adaptability is I don't like to think of anything as a failure or a mistake if you learn something. I think that any experience where you're capable of learning something is a success in and of itself. The pursuit of knowledge is a success because you could fail something 100 times, but it's almost certain that you could learn something from every single one of those failures. So as long as you fail differently 100 different times, you're one step closer to success with every single thing you do. And even if you give up entirely on that project, a lot of the time you've gained transferable skills. You've invested into communication or into resources or into talents, and those things can be used outside of the scope of what you wanted. But because you now view it as a failure or a mistake, it's a negative context. So it's for me, it's much easier to look at everything as this is a learning experience, and it gets me one step closer to my goal of whatever that goal may be.
Very solid. Yeah, I think the steps are the most important part to any long-term project. You have to respect the small elements. That's the building blocks, having that core. Yeah, Benjamin, would you like to touch on that subject?
Yeah. So I think that with self-compassion as well, everyone is far more kinder to everyone else than they are to themselves. I know that's what I know that's what's been touched on recently. One thing that I started doing um, with my meditations and my journaling is if there's a day that I'm like feeling really strong in emotion, when I go and I start journaling, I kind of write down what I say, like what I'm feeling. Like, am I anxious? Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I melancholic? Once I kind of really say what I'm feeling, I just simply follow it up. I accept that I'm feeling this. I acknowledge that I'm feeling this, and that is perfectly okay. We as emotions and our ability to have such strong feelings is also what I think is a key thing that makes us human. And not being so hard on ourselves is really, really important to being able to change and adapt, as said. And I'm sure that everyone here is kind of, as Dan was saying, is kind of like struggled with that. And just being able to go and say to yourself, having the same compassion that you would have for others, for yourself is detriment, is like so important and detrimental to be. I think I'm using that incorrectly. It's just super important to being a better person, being okay with yourself, and saying to yourself, it's okay. What I'm feeling right now is okay. I can't be bad at myself for what I'm feeling.
Instrumental as the
Instrumental.
term.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Detrimental means to be negative.
Yeah.
To do
Instrumental.
harm.
It's okay. This is Cactus, our word guy on the podcast, not Cameron. Cactus. Let's just clarify, okay? I need Cactus's help most of the time anyway, so don't feel bad, Benjamin.
I just have a dictionary right here. I just flip through it.
Benjamin, I really like the way you added that, and I appreciate the extra layer, I guess, that you went into on that. You know, one of the things, a concept that I've dug into a bit is we can't help the way we feel. Like as life unfolds, certain things are going to create within us certain feelings and certain emotional reactions, and those are very, very largely out of our control. What we can control is then how we react to that, the sort of behavior that we put back into the system. Does this make me super angry? And if so, am I then going to go act on that anger? Or am I going to like think about, or am I going to use that anger as fuel to do something productive about it? And that, for me, that is one way that I have adapted. Anger has been my fam. There's a lot of anger in my family, right? And I've spent a lot of my life angry, man, like breaking stuff and throwing legitimate temper tantrums as like a 30-year-old man, right? Ridiculous behavior. but I have adapted that, right? I've given myself love and forgiveness, but I've also become aware that like the things that make me angry are outside of my control. But what is in my control is how I react. And then I can slowly work at that. I can change those habits. I can switch from the habit of temper tantrums to the habit of well, like either that's something that makes me angry enough that that fuels enough for me to go out and make a difference or do something productive, or I can just be like, you know what? Yeah, it makes me angry because that's awful, and I'm a good person. And when a good person sees something awful, they get angry. But now that that's over with, I'm gonna go like enjoy the rest of my day. And so, and again, that I guess I'm done.
Hey, no, it's a good point.
Embrace the outcome.
A big one for me has been the detachment from outcome, right? Like we as humans, we love to plan. We love to get it all in order, right? We make our shopping lists, we make our packing lists, we schedule out our vacations, we do all this stuff, but life can give us exactly what we want if we have the eyes to see it, right? Okay, here's what I want. Here's what I'm asking for. This is my plan. I'm making this schedule or this list because I want to achieve something. And going through those steps is great. Like Cactus was saying, like just because you pick up one particular skill, then you can apply that skill to any aspect in your life, right? So we make the plan, we hold that intention, we focus on what it is we want to achieve, and then let go of the need to cross everything off that list. Maybe as the process unfolds, we can get to our destination without achieving all those things on the list. Or maybe after achieving the first thing, the whole list, if we're really being true to the process and not hammering in on the list, maybe the whole list goes out the window. And if we're open and if we're patient and if we're accepting and if we're okay with the discomfort of the unknown, then that can unfold some really wonderful things for us.
Yeah,
I'd
really
like to-
getting used to that discomfort's important.
I'd like to add something to what Dan just said. I've had my list change overnight, and even from the time I left for work in the morning to the time I came home. I came home one day, and my wife and I had to basically reevaluate the entire list at that point. It was difficult. It was heartbreaking. Yet the list changed at that point for how do I put it? It made me reevaluate everything I thought that was important at that time, and to look ahead to see what it was that I had to do to keep going, to adapt. And I'll leave that at that.
Some heavy conversation today. This is honestly very good. It's there's someone out there who's definitely felt some of this discussion because it's a pretty universal one to have. With the human condition is a shared element in this room. We struggle to survive, in a mental and physical sense, and that's something that we should value within each other, and appreciate that we are here in the present and able to have fellowship, able to have community, and gather, and that's something I'm thankful for. With projects like these, it's especially you're especially able to see that, in a physical sense.
be ready to change your list at any specific time. Anytime that if you feel that it's not going your way, look and see if there's something on that list that you can change. Just a little tweak here and there might make all the difference in a success or a failure. So be willing to say, this isn't working. What have I been doing to get to this point where it's not working? Maybe I can change something along the way. And embrace the adaptability that you have within you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing that and being open with us and letting us into that tender and real part of you. And it's the real stuff that is worth the gold, but it's not always easy to share. So I feel you, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. What the whole point in that is that when I went to work that morning, I had my list and I had, this is what I got to do today. When I get home, I'm going to do this, clean the garage or whatever. I don't clean my garage, but anyway.
That's another story, Jeff.
I know we can get into that on a different video, but halfway through the day, my entire world changed, and I could have, taken that several different ways. I still had to do certain things, I had to pay the bills, I had to pay the mortgage. I still had to eat. It's just that I was doing it alone at that point, not with someone. And so, I had to look at where I was at that point and then figure out how I was going to keep going, how I was going to adapt. Some things I would stay the same. Other things like going to work every day, that would had to continue. But there were other things that were no longer important when it was she and I. That all those things were no longer the most important, and other things had to take their place. So just be ready every single day, every single moment. Your entire life can change, and you can hide and drink yourself into a stupor and stay inside and turn on all the lights and just wish yourself was dead, or you could open the door and look at the sunshine and head on out the next day and choose to have a good time, to try to enjoy it the best you can. And that's a conscious choice that each of you have to make.
Wow, Jeff. I just have to personally say that I appreciate you admitting and coming forward all this as well. And as a friend of yours, like you've been one of my best friends. Honestly, you've been open and you've been able to have those tough discussions with me and advise me in a healthy way. That's not just telling me, oh, you need to think this way. If you're around me, uh, you're very understanding, and I know that you coming forward to the group and to the podcast explaining this is from a place of wanting to understand and bring positive outreach to someone who maybe is going through a similar thing, and that's just something I really commend you on, and it's what builds this show into such a unique experience, if that makes sense.
Yes, and you and I have had some pretty deep discussions over the years. I've enjoyed every one of them, and I've lived so many years on this planet, and you haven't lived quite so many. But all of you have something to share that I can learn from, and see if it fits where I need to go or where I want to go in life to get to my final destination, which could change in a day. So we've got weird things going on all over the planet. There's many end time signs that I've seen come true. I got a list of 10 or 12 already, and we can go into that in another show too. But
There's a lot
embrace
of
the
topics.
change. It is embrace the change. So that's the best solution, the best advice that I could give is embrace the change that has been brought to you, and see what you can do with it.
That's positive, you know. Yeah. Yeah, Dan, go for it, and then we'll go to Benjamin here.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm excited to meet you and to have more conversations down the road. The past few years, I think, have been a pretty serious struggle for most humans on this planet, and my family certainly has not been above the effects of that. And my wife and I were working through some really heavy stuff. And one of the things that my wife has had to deal with me is that I have changed a lot. You know, we met in San Diego. We started a life in San Diego. We had our son in San Diego. And then we knew just based on watching the world, I knew it was time to come back to a more rural area, an area where things were just more in alignment. Right, that's a whole other topic as well. But the things were just more in alignment with the way we wanted to live our life. And, you know, we had these, as we're sitting around the table in San Diego, thinking about what our life in Plumas County is going to be like. We had a list, we had a plan. And then we get here, right? And I go through kind of my spiritual crisis, awakening process that I've been going through. COVID hits. We learn about I've always been aware of the agenda to conquer, destroy, and enslave Earth and all the beings on it. And as Jeff said, like now we're kind of moving out of that conspiracy theory phase into the conspiracy observation phase. And so to get back, my wife and I were having we'll call it a discussion. And she's like, you've changed. Like our whole life has changed. Like we had this plan and like now here we are. I don't know what we're doing. Like what in the world is going on? And like all like very, very valid points and concerns. And my response was, well, yeah, I've changed. How much has our view of the world changed in the last 5 years, right? Like I'm trying to adapt to this perspective of the world that we live in. And like, it's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up on your own as if it was someone without a child, someone without a wife, someone without a group of people who depend on you, right? Even those of us who are single out there and can kind of roll with the punches and flow. Man, there is a lot of information and a lot of perspective and a lot of earth-shattering stuff coming down the pipe right now. And I think this ties into the adaptability, right? Like if I was the same person that I was 5 years ago, I would not be able to function in this environment, let alone potentially thrive or keep food on the table or keep firewood going into the fireplace, right? Like I would literally not be able to function. And some of that has been the conscious choice to adapt. Some of that has been that animal instinct of survivability. But I think this discussion is just so important. Again, because of these times we're in, it seems to me that we're coming to some sort of, Jeff, I think you said end times, and I understand exactly what you mean. I think we can all feel it, even if we don't want to acknowledge it. And I think that's why there's so much panic and chaos in many people. But I think like there are the Earth and the solar system and the universe, they go through cycles, right? And at the end of each cycle is also the beginning of a new cycle. And we are coming now to that end cycle, beginning cycle time. And the signs are all around us. I've had talked to people about the state of government overreach and enslavement, and they're like, but it's always been that way. It's what? Yeah, because that agenda has been there since the beginning of recorded history, right? That's why we have recorded history, so they could spin their agenda on us. But what is changing is the times and the cycles, right? And I think this is a natural part of what Earth goes through. If Earth didn't go through times of cleansing and times of restructuring, then like God help us, right? then all these entities that seek to control us would never have anything. We would never be free of them, right? But when we go through these cycles, when there is calamity, when our systems do collapse, then we're afforded the opportunity to rebuild them and rethink them in a way that's more alignment with the collective human consciousness and with the times that we're going through. And so just uncomfortable, that might even be an understatement, but profound and exciting, also true, is how I would describe the times we're in right now.
Yeah, no, and if I know, Benjamin, you want to you have a response still, correct? But if I may, real fast to Dan, and it kind of goes collectively to Jeff and Dan, with the end times, I understand where you're coming from on that perspective too, but the way I view it is there's always room for growth, right? Even if it's quote unquote the end times, there's still this potential of life, right? There's an element of life. And I think that's the focus we should gravitate towards, that collectively we can get behind. We can collectively push that life should be valued. Life is something that isn't necessarily one person's, one thing's, control. Like, there's independence with life. And if we don't take our independence seriously, we don't take life seriously. It kind of coexists, where you have to be the captain of your own ship. And with being more into philosophy these days, because I've been behind looking at the Word of God and seeing what's the reasoning behind Christianity. And it, to me, it was, and I don't even mean this in just a Christian sense, but an end times to me seems more like our own doing of, it's the own self sabotaging the self. And it's just the metaphor you use to display an unguided perspective of life, an unguided people. It's like the Israelites wandering out in the desert and being in Exodus. It's a cultural thing that's rooted deep within humanity. Like, we all share this drive to understand what happens next. And I think that's where adaptability is important, because through life or through death, humans exist, life exists and persists. And that's just something I thought that I had to get out because of the religious ties. But Benjamin, I don't want to pass up your point. Please, if you would like.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just trying to go and collect all my thoughts on this end as well.
It's a big discussion.
It's a big thing. Yeah, there's a lot of things being touched on. I think one of the biggest things to to talk about, or at least that I want to touch on, is it partially goes into what is within your control and what is not. From my own perspective of for a long time of best how am I going to try and put this? Let's see here. As an archaeologist, a lot of what we have, a lot of what we've found, a lot of material remains have been lost to the sands of time, just because of how the nature of like cloth and bone, metals, stone. Over time, as humans have adapted and changed, nations rise and fall, cultures interact and morph and change into new things. So much has been kind of lost and seen. Each individual, as they go through the times, the one that I hear people talking about, or at least that I see on social media, is women asking their husbands, or people asking their friends, like, hey, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And I think that that's one of those things where the times that we as individuals grow and to go through life, as we see patterns that may repeat, we see similarities because we are not a limited species, but patterns tend to form. We kind of follow along preset pathways. And so I think with that is like a lot of people are starting to see like, oh, in all of what is being written in the culmination of human literature, recorded history, is that, as said, there are these tendencies or there are these paths that continue to be followed. Things are set up a certain way, or they continue as things are established, but then over time, they simply deteriorate. They don't. People change, and the institutions or the way or the established ways of structure start to crumble and lose their shape because they're changing. Times are changing. Our impact on the world is changing. And it's very much one of those things where then you have to look at it from the individual perspective of what can I do? And I think that it's, as Danny was saying, is that the plans change. So where you were 5 years ago is not going to be the same as where you are today. You what you want to do, your sense of self-preservation, what drives you to ensure that you and your loved ones are still alive, is very much going to impact where you decide to go in life. Whenever someone asks me like, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or like, what do you plan to see yourself in 5 years? A lot of the times in my head, I just think, I don't even know if I'm going to be alive. Anything can change within that time. I can have a plan, but at the same time, I'm kind of living the day to day. Tomorrow hasn't come yet. I haven't woken up to greet the day. So it's part of it is the decisions that you make now in trying to prepare for what may happen. A lot of times in the past, there's like, oh, this specific day the world will end, and everyone's like, whatever, it's not going to happen. But what if that one day that does happen? What do you do? Have you prepared for that? Have you set aside food? Have you set aside water? Do you have a shelter? Do you have the tools for something to happen, for structures and for governments to fall apart? How have you as an individual prepared to take those steps? And for me going into archaeology, I really wanted to not only see what, as also like the son of a history teacher, seeing how we as a species have changed, but also what methods, what ways of life in the past have been lost simply because they were recorded or they have been erased through purposeful elimination of a culture or a way of thinking. We've seen this a lot in California or throughout the United States as well, with the westward expansion of the United States into Indian territory and more of the tribes areas. So much has been lost, but then also looted by we've lost so much in context, and this is why I went into this field, is because I want to preserve that. I want to preserve old ways of adaptability, of understanding. Flint knapping. People think that, oh, that's what our ancestors used to do. That's what primitives used to do. We have all this technology. What happens when that technology disappears? What happens when an EMP goes off and everything gets wiped? You can have backups and stuff, but you're just everyday devices. What do? You have to be able to adapt, and that's really why I enjoy my major, but then also the career that I'm looking to go down, so that I can gather that information, not only share it and preserve it, but if something happens, be able to use it once again.
Yeah, good points, Benjamin. Yeah, very well said. I think, Dan, yeah, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I want to echo some of that. I also want to, I guess, clarify, I think it's important to just share my perspective when I say end times, right? I think that we have to be really careful with that, because that is terrifying, right? And fear is debilitating. And I don't believe, personally, I do not believe that we are coming towards any sort of end of the earth, or end of human life on earth, or end of life in general on earth. I think that the earth and life have gone through multiple cycles of what we call the end times, right? That's just our definition. Those are just the words that we use to describe this thing. And for me, what it is not an end of times. It's not an end of life. It's not an end of earth. It is the end of the dogma. It is the end of the systems. It's the end of a cycle, right? This, from my perspective and my belief system, we've used a lot of this last cycle, however you want to quantify that, right? 12,000 years ish, a couple of thousand years ish, right? A couple of 100 years, right? The predominant theme of the cycle has been conquering and destruction, right? I was talking about this with somebody yesterday. We're talking about open pit mines and the companies that come in afterwards and reclaim the property and put it all back to the way it was, right? I'm using the air quotes there. And it kind of dawned on me that, like, there's, in our current paradigm and the current system, there's no money, there's no profits in saving the earth, right? All the profits, all the Fortune 500 companies come from destroying, right? Going out there and collecting natural resources and digging them up out of the ground, or harvesting from the surface and turning them into a profit that is then sold. And our governments, right? Our governments are self-perpetuating control mechanisms for the societies of Earth. Our financial institutions are control mechanisms. They take our ability to prosper and thrive and put limiting factors on those, limiting factors that benefit their creators but not the users, right? And so I just wanted to clarify that when I talk about end times, for me, there's some scary aspects to that, but really it's exciting because I see it as a naturally occurring process of the earth that will aid us in breaking these systems down, these systems that are not in our best interest, these systems that do not support sovereignty, these systems that do not support personal relationships between ourselves and others, and the animals and the plants and the rocks and the water and our mother earth. And I believe that these are the natural state, right? And that this cycle the pendulum has swung away from those things. And with the ending of this time, the pendulum will then be able to swing back the other way. And so thank you for sticking. I know that was a little long-winded, but I just wanted to clarify and like I said, end times for me is not the ending of everything. It's a new beginning. It's an opportunity for a new beginning.
Yeah, setting it with growth, the potential for growth. I think that's a good point to bring up. And
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Dan. Yeah, I think as well. Like when I heard you say that, I think I kind of took it out of that context of just like it's not as said like it's gonna hit midnight on the New Year's and the world's just gonna explode into a million tiny fragments. But it is the way the life as we know it, the way in which our society function, our world works, is going to change. What has come before is what has worked now is not going to work continuing, and it's going to shift. So thank you for clarifying that.
I really think we covered quite a bit of the topic
Yeah,
here.
we covered quite a bit today. That was a hefty discussion.
So, what's something, if you could sum up in a sentence, the frame of the question is what adaptability's importance is to you. So, what the most important aspect of adaptability is, how you could sum that up. If we want to start with Cactus, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I can jump in. The most important aspect to me about adaptability is, I think we all stated it earlier, is awareness. You have to understand the situation that you're adapting to and the environment that you're going to be adapting into to understand what's going to be the best fit. And you have to understand, yourself before you can make a change for the better or for the worse. Well, you can make changes for the worse pretty easily, but it's very easy to lose your sense of self if you're not making it. So I think knowledge of self is a key part to adaptation.
Perfect. Benjamin, would you care to comment on what makes adaptability, what sums adaptability up?
I'd say that adaptability is resilience. So, at least in my sense of resilience in not only an emotional, not in a physical, but also in a kind of like an all encompassing of those, of being able to be being able to encounter obstacles, encountering hardship, and being able to push through that, being able to change, that resilience of not confining yourself to a box and basically setting yourself up to not be able to change or to be able to become a better person or to do all these different things. To be able to adapt, you have to be resilient and you have to be able to understand that shit's going to suck, but it's not always going to be that way.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Dan, would you like to close with your perspective on this?
Sure. I think to me, adaptability is the way is a way forward, right? I think the future depends on our ability to be adaptable. I think a lot of us can agree that the way we are doing things now is only has a finite amount of time that it is going to be sustainable and to work. And so to continue doing things the same way that aren't working is going to potentially spell disastrous results for us. But if we can adapt and if we can incorporate the things that we're learning and shift our lives so that we are functioning in more alignment with what we truly believe we want to be and what we truly believe is happening, then we will be afforded the opportunity to thrive that much more, right? Not that we can't thrive now, but that our seems like there's a direct correlation between the thriving that we experience versus the adaptability that we practice.
Yeah, well put. Well put. And honestly, for me, I would say engagement is the one thing that kind of ties adaptability up for me. If it's positive or negative, you're still engaging with the world through um, having an option and choosing to make a decision. Uh, it may not be perfect, may not always be pretty, but your engagement with that decision or with the world through that decision helps you display a level of trust with reality. You're able to learn what helps, what hinders, um, a way forward, such as was spoken. It's important to have a way forward for progress, and if you only see yourself moving backwards, you're never gonna truly feel content. And honestly, I think we we've covered this topic very extensively today, and I want to thank you guys for showing up today and being a part of this discussion, and to all of our viewers for being here and being with us. It's been a pleasure and truly something that I've looked forward to doing and coming back to.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you everyone for showing up today. This was a lovely discussion. I appreciate everyone's input on the subject. It was refreshing.
Absolutely.
I just want to apologize again for being late. Life's been a little crazy right now, so thank you for letting me in late and for including me in this. This has been really a wonderful conversation. And again, I'm excited too with these things for the new relationships, right? Like Ben talking with you, and last time we talked, Aquatic and Jeff, and Ben, you and Jeff are right here in Quincy, man. I'm right on the other side of the mountain from you guys, so that's exciting. It's exciting to see people come in together, and I'm excited for the future.
Absolutely. No, and let's just go ahead and wish everyone a good rest of their day, because we really appreciate you being here, and we'll be back.
Thank you for joining us on an intellectual adventure. Thank you for joining us for another intellectual adventure. I hope you'll tune in next time for more in-depth discussion on a brand new topic. This concludes our talk on what makes adaptability important in life, and I hope you can take something valuable away from today's discussion. I know I certainly have some things to think about. Thanks for listening, intellectuals. See you next time.